Hi everybody, it's Philip here again from Good Dog Training. I'm recording the video under the grief and the loss of a pet, and this is the part two. I was very happy with the response that I got to the first part, where people were commenting and ringing, and but one of the things that I noticed was that it is still the loss of a pet is still such a trauma to people that there's a lot of non-communication with other family and friends around the subject, and just being able to talk to people who weren't willing to sort of come in and talk about it, but just really want to acknowledge that I'd hit a little nerve with them, and that they were, delighted that there was that they weren't alone in this whole experience. Anyway, hopefully this one will find its mark as well with some people. Okay, what I wanted to talk about today was the doubt, the guilt, and the worry around euthanizing your pet. Now, as previously said, I'm a dog lover, okay? In many ways, I'm talking in terms of dogs here, but it relates to cats, it relates to horses, donkeys, goats, whatever your animal is as your pet. And we reach a point where the dog or the horse or cat has become so ill that we really feel that it's in its best interest to end its life. Now, we had that recent experience with our Ben, a dog, and a number of months ago we had to make a decision. He had cancer, and it was a really, really tough decision. And myself and my wife, we spoke about it quite a lot as to how are we going to know when it's the right time. And in the back of our minds and in conversation with each other, we decided that as soon as he really started to suffer, that was the time. Now, when that time arrived, it was still really tough decision. And this is what I wanted to talk about. It is this worry that, did we go too soon? Did we, was there more pleasure in his life for himself and for us to hold on to him for another few months? Or did we leave it too late? Was he really suffering and suffering quietly? And that, in our selfishness, we kept him alive longer than we should. Now, to have this conversation with somebody that's never had a dog or a pet of any quality in their lives, it just sounds mad to wonder and to feel bad and to worry and even to feel guilty that maybe you've made the wrong decision, that you've gone too early or too late. And as I say, to a lot of people, that's just, I don't know, it's nuts. But to us and to many people out there who make this decision, it is awful to do it. It is really a tough, tough decision. But we've got to have faith in our decisions, I think. We've got to look and say, I know that dog. We had him for 10 years. And we knew when he was off his food or when he was out of shape all through his life. And we really knew in our heart and soul that the moment had arrived where it was time to let him go. Now, when he was diagnosed with cancer, and this gives me an opportunity to shout out to Bramley O'Shea vets and particularly David Woods, who looked after Ben at this time. But when we got the diagnosis as to how bad he was, and he was given about 6 months to live, and I asked David, I said, David, is there anything at all that we can do for him? And David just said, spoil him. That's all you can do. And it was the best advice, really. And we spoiled him. We walked him rotten. We carried him around. We lifted him into cars, let him swim, let him whatever he needed to do. And my gosh, his diet probably changed a bit as well with the amount of treats and things that he was getting. But ultimately the day arrived and we had to end his life. So to all of you people who've been through this experience, and as I say, it can be a dirty great big horse that you've had for 20 odd years, or a goat or a cat, and this moment has arrived. Try not to beat yourself up about the decision that you've made. Have faith in your relationship with that animal, that you knew that animal, you knew him inside out or her inside out, and that the decision that you made was made from the greatest place that it can be made. It's made from love and from your heart. So don't beat yourself up about it, okay? That's my tip of the day when this sort of horrible situation does arise. Now, there were a few other things that I wanted to tag on to this. I think it's important when our animals have passed on that we create some kind of ritual around the end of their life. We had Ben cremated, and we still have his ashes hanging around the kitchen table, quite unsure as to what to do with them and where to spread them. He had so many favourite places, but we'll get around to it in our own good time. And we will probably have a little homemade ceremony that myself and Rohit will conduct with our other dogs, and we'll just mark the occasion and mark Ben's life in whatever we choose to do. And I think this is important, okay, that we do create a ritual to end it. We have it in relation to humans. We do acknowledge the grief that's around the death of loved humans, but we need to do that as well in relation to our animals, okay? I have to refer to a note or two here. Keep it in relation to the rituals. It's a good idea to just keep a little box of memories of your dog. Some really nice photos that you might have taken. Some of their favourite toys, their a blanket that they slept on, or something like that. Okay, but it is a little memory box or something like that. Okay. Maybe, you can't fit a lot of horse paraphernalia into a little box, but maybe a lock of hair from its tail or its mane, similarly with a cat. And all the other animals that come under this heading. So do try and just keep a little memory box to keep the whole thing alive for you, and but to let it find its perspective within you. And that to us, as people and as pet owners, I think is important. One other thing that I really wanted to mention is, if there are children in your family when you lose a pet, it is really important to make sure that they understand what has happened, okay? And to let the child grieve the loss of the pet. They may have shown no great affinity with the pet when the pet was alive, or any great interest in the pet when the pet was alive. But perhaps this is the first occasion that death has crept into the child's life, okay? And it needs to be acknowledged, the significance of it, for you and for anybody else that lives within the family that is deeply affected and has had the pet maybe for a long, long time. So include the child in your grieving process, and especially when the child is deeply affected, had a real and true love and understanding of the pet that they owned, or that the family owned. That make sure that your child understands what they're feeling, and to assure them that those feelings are perfectly acceptable. And to share your own feelings, to be able to say, I miss Ben, to a child is just as supportive of that child as it is good for you to be able to say what's going on in your head or in your heart. And yes, I do miss Ben. But children especially are vulnerable when it comes to the first significant death within a family, okay? So bear that in mind. So that's really all I have for you in part 2 of this series of grief and the loss of a pet. You can find me on Good Dog Training on Facebook or on our website. There are phone numbers and emails available. And this will be posted on YouTube, but also on our Facebook page. So do open up if you have anything you want to get off your chest. If you think the whole thing is nonsense, just say so. I'd be interested to hear any views that people have. If you find the series useful and want to talk about it a bit more, don't be shy about it again. And I said this in part 1, and the invitation is still there to come and chat to us, okay? Amy, who works here, and Rachel, who works here, they're both pet lovers. That's why they work here, and they understand exactly the love and bond that people create with their pets. So you're not coming to knock on a hollow door or a hollow wall. You will be received with gentleness if you are in a difficult place with regard to the loss of your pet. You might say good dog training outside the door, but when it comes to the grieving for the loss of the pet, it's anything. Good horse training, good cat, good rabbit training, doesn't matter. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll hear from you sometime. Bye bye.